Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for some more Chelsea transfer news. And because Chelsea and all the transfer world don't like me, they decided to release Mason Mount news 10 minutes before we decided to go live. I changed the thumbnail, title, and all sorts of bases left, right, and center. So here we are, and we can't even mainly focus on having Joe Neil-Secker on the show. I'll get to you in a second, Joe. First, we have to focus on Mason Mount. I mean, what a bloody whirlwind. We were talking about it literally earlier. What a quiet day so far. Nothing's really happening. Even Pice was tweeting. What's happening? Well, we were all hoping it was going to be something cooking positive. But in the end, we decided to cook some more sales because that's what Chelsea do at the moment. And unfortunately, RD, no Pice today because he's got some college stuff going on where he's unavailable. So unfortunately, that is that. But yeah, Mason Mount, Chelsea have agreed a deal with Manchester United for the sale of Mason Mount for up to £60 million, £55 million plus £5 million in add-ons. Doesn't seem like those are going to be the most easiest of add-ons either. So maybe we should realistically more call it 55 million. I don't know. We'll get to it. Because I want to give you a more proper intro, I'll start with Charlie. Like I say, let's just start with you, Charlie. Reaction? What are we saying about that? I mean, we did kind of see it coming, but then obviously this whole story was kind of a whole ebb and flow, wasn't it? It went to, oh yeah, it looks like he's definitely going to United, to, oh, who knows what's happening now? He might end up staying. Will he leave on a free next year? Who knows what's going to happen? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get basically the here we go. How do you feel about it, though? Because I was planning today to also talk about, like, are we moving stupid? Are we moving smart with selling all a little bit experienced players or more experienced players and signing 15, 18-year-olds? But not sure we'll have time for that today. But essentially, this kind of leads on to it even more, isn't it? Because, I mean, we sold Mount, and who we're going to replace him with? What, another 18-year-old Brazilian? That's the part that concerns, because I'm like, yeah, we needed to clear out badly at this club. Absolutely. But you'll only find out whether the clear out worked when you see how we replaced him with, right? Or how we replaced all of those players with. So Mount is one to start with. What are you feeling? Is it annoying? Is it annoying on a personal perspective from him? Is it annoying that Chelsea weren't doing more to keep him here? How do you see it, mate?
I think that, like, whatever your thoughts are, like, one way or another, it's a massive relief that it's over, so we don't have to keep talking about it, and doesn't have to keep being, oh, will he stay, won't he stay, oh, like, and multiple briefings coming out of that ridiculous evening. I think it might have been Saturday or something, where there was a briefing from United saying, oh, we're dropping out, we're going after Caicedo, and then Mount's camp briefing, oh, he never really wanted to leave, and then Chelsea briefing that, oh, actually, we'll sell him to Bayern, then if you don't pay us the money, all this rubbish. I think the worst thing about this whole situation is that, you know, there's been zero communication from anyone about what's really been going on. Like, fans have essentially just been mugged off in the whole situation. No one's got any idea what's really happened. We've got a few established facts out there, and it's not about blaming one side or the other. Both parties are equally culpable for the situation that's happened here. But I just feel that, like, a complete lack of transparency hasn't helped the situation at all. The way it's played out so publicly really hasn't. I don't think it reflects well on the club for someone that's, whatever you think of him as a player, for someone that's been here since he's 8 years of age or 6 or 8 years of age. It's not really any way to treat this player. But ultimately, you know, it feels kind of weird. Like, players come and leave, players come and go from Chelsea all the time. But when it's someone that's been here for so long, and, you know, has been quite instrumental in the recent success, particularly the Champions League and whatnot. Obviously, back-to-back player of the year, whether you think those were deserved or not is irrelevant. He got those voted for by the fans at the end of the day. So obviously that's kind of a representation of how well he's done. I think it's just a bit of a shame, really, that it's had to end like this, because we had loads of memories of Mount. There should have been loads. There should have been a lot more. This should never have happened, in my opinion. It really shouldn't have done. This should have been the easiest contract renewal to get done out of the lot. And it's weird how, you know, out of all the contracts we've renewed, like Reece, Silva, Chilwell, Chalobah, Broja, etc., not a single thing in the press about any of it. No issues whatsoever. This one literally seemed to be a problem from the get-go. Now, I don't know, again, you know, we've been through all the ins and outs and stuff, but it's just kind of it's a weird situation that we'll never see him in a Chelsea shirt again. And, you know, I think the last time we saw him was he come on as a sub in that second leg against Real Madrid in the Champions League. Back in...
And arguably was our best player.
When was that? March or April or something? So, yeah, we haven't seen him for a while. Obviously, last day of the season... Obviously, he didn't play or whatever. Did his little applause and whatnot, but Yeah, look, it feels weird, really. I don't feel like sad about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not sad. It's not really the right word. It's just like, I think it's just disappointing because at a club he's gone to. If he'd gone to, say, I don't know, Bayern Munich or whatever, then, yeah, fair enough, whatever, no problem. But obviously, because we're competing with United, it's not great. But yeah, I guess the biggest disappointment for me is that we're never going to really find out what went on and what the reasonings were. I'd love to see what sort of farewell message he's got planned, or if he'll even do one at all. Like, will he be allowed? I'm not saying will he be allowed to do one, but will he be allowed to,
say what he wants to say?
Say what he actually wants to say. Is someone else going to write it for him? All these sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of slightly irrelevant at this point in time. I just feel the whole thing's been handled so badly, and there's no winners from it at all.
No, I see it similar, to be honest. I mean, Joe, I'll finally come to you. Can everybody hear me fine? I had a weird lag.
Yeah, all good, bro. All good.
Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Wonderful. Joe, first of all, thank you for coming on the channel. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back on. Oh, I say back on, to have you on. Unfortunately, in my books, and I feel like probably also in your books, not necessarily the best news. Now, it's not like I'm sat here crying my eyes out. It's not like I'm sat here saying, if only Mason Mount said everything would have been great. It's not, I don't see it that way. But a little bit like Charlie said, where I'm just like, it just should have never come to this situation. It just should have never happened the way it has. And to me, regardless of whether this is Mason Mount, regardless of whether this is Ruben Loftus-Cheek or any other youngster that's been at the club for 8 years and won 2 Player of the Season awards, did really well for us in important things like winning the Champions League, assist in that goal, scoring goals in the lead up to that Champions League final through the quarters and the semis, doing really important things. And for that to end up as basically us having to force a sale to make sure he doesn't leave for free next year, it's crazy. To me, it's utterly crazy that we've come to this situation with Mason Mount. At the end of the day, we are here. There's been a lot of talk about why and how we got here. Obviously, I had Nathan Gissing on the channel on Tuesday. We were talking from his perspective, and also a lot more sources by this point, talking about how there was this agreement before the World Cup. Then Chelsea basically pulled it off the table once Paul Winstanley took over instead of Todd Bowley. And ever since then, there's literally been one contract offer in February, which was a 1-year contract offer. And nothing more serious since then. Basically, no talk since then. And it wasn't apparently a case of Mount wanting to leave. It was a case of, well, you lot don't want me to stay, so I'm either leaving now or for free next season. And then Chelsea told him, well, we don't want you to leave for free next season, so you're leaving now. And now here we are. But Joe, how do you view the whole thing? Because, I mean, are you gutted that Mount is leaving? Are you happy? But like, obviously, I didn't speak to you in that much detail over the last few months, years, whatever. Know what you exactly feel about Mount. So let me know, mate. Let everyone know.
No, for me, it was more down to the fact that it's like the image of it, isn't it? Like, he is one of these, Cobham, graduates that are at the forefront of it. And I just think the image of him in a Manchester United shirt, that doesn't really sit well with me. I just think that, the whole situation should have been handled a hell of a lot better than what it has. Obviously, we're never, like you said, never really going to know the true ins and outs of it. But, it is a shame. I think it is a shame. I think he's a fantastic football player. I think the fact that last season he probably didn't have his best season overall when he did play, I think obviously maybe that's why they didn't think about, why they didn't put him on the same sort of pedestal as maybe Reece James, maybe where he hasn't, Reece got a big bumper contract. Maybe that was maybe the reason. I don't know, but I still think he's a fantastic player. I think he'll do well at United. And, the fact is, our like poster boy of the Cobham graduates shouldn't be playing in a Manchester United shirt. And that really don't sit well with me. I kind of remember when we had Juan Mata, and obviously he went there. A lot of fans, he won the Player of the Season 2 years in a row, and a lot of fans were saying about him going there. But I think this is slightly different because of the fact that he is a Cobham lad, and it should have just been handled a hell of a lot better and probably quicker as well to even get to this situation where he could have left on a free. I think it's just been a complete mess all around, really.
Yeah, and that's how I see it. But at the same time, it's like, well, it is what it is now. I guess we'll look at the Athletic article about it in a second. I haven't been able to read through everything because it literally came out 15 minutes before we were supposed to go live. But we'll read through it in a second if they say anything interesting. But purely from a perspective, and I'll come back to you, Charlie, do you think we made enough money out of this to be, at least from that side of the story, at least that we can be happy with that side of things. Like 55 plus 5 million. Again, we'll look at it in more detail in a second. But is that enough money for you to be okay with it? Obviously, with Kai, we kind of made our money back, essentially. We'll talk about Kai in a minute as well, because obviously his transfer got announced officially yesterday. But Mount, we never signed. So any 60 million we get is obviously huge money because, I mean, we had the guy for free since he's 8. But at the same time, if we were in a bit of a better situation where we weren't like, everybody knows we won't give him another contract, essentially. Everybody also knew he won't sign another contract at this point, at least. And also that he only had 1 year left on the contract. If he had 2 years left, 3 years left, we could have easily sold him for 80, 90 million, maybe more. So it's frustrating. I mean, it's still better than Rudiger and Christensen, I suppose. It's not great, though.
Yeah, well, look, I actually think from Chelsea, it's good business. It's a player that obviously didn't want to be at the club anymore, didn't want to sign a new deal for whatever reasons. And to get £60 million with 1 year left on the contract, and all that's going to be pure profit on the books because we didn't sign him from anywhere. If you're purely talking numbers, I actually think it's a pretty good deal. I think, with Chelsea put in initially wanting 70, 75 million pounds, I think it was clear at that price there were no takers. So we have had to come down a little bit in order to agree a deal. We could have stood firm and said, no, this is what we want. If you don't pay it, he's not going. And, you run the risk of losing him on a free. I feel that's something that could have happened under the previous regime, maybe. But with Bowley and stuff, like if you don't want to stay, you're being sold. And that's the reality of the situation here, is that Mount didn't want to stay or didn't feel he could stay, and you have to be sold. So 60 million quid, I think, all things given, is pretty good. If you'd said to me last summer that we would have got 125 million quid all in for Havertz and Mount, that's mad business. Like that, whatever you think about it, really, I think that's good business.
But when you think about what other players are sold for nowadays, I'm like, is it good business? Who's going to pay 170 mil out of them too?
But who's going to pay more? Who's going to pay more than 65 million for Kai Havertz? No one.
I think the Kai Havertz deal is very good. Very good for Chelsea, I think. I think that's really good. But you're getting back pretty much what you paid for him.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree on Kai, because obviously he's been in a bit of a different situation where he's been kind of average for 3 years straight with highlight peak moments in between. While Mount had one really good year, one good year, and now one bad year where he was also injured for a third of the season or whatever. So it's like that's not the same as Havertz to me. So
I just don't think we could have got more money for him. I just don't think we could have done. And ultimately, like even if we tried to squeeze more, we'd have just lost on a free. So rather than trying to squeeze an extra 5 or 10 million out, take 5 million less than perhaps what we wanted and don't lose him for free. Because what would have been even worse if he was allowed to run his contract down and walk away for free. At least this way, we've been financially compensated. Whether we think whether we're disappointed or not by the move, at least we've received 60 million pounds for it, rather than running that risk and being stubborn and allowing him to leave for free. That would have been even worse. So look, we don't need the money. He wasn't sold for financial fair play reasons, because we've already generated a lot of money through sales. So he wasn't sold for financial purposes anyway. So look, I think it's good business, but ultimately, I don't think it was worth the risk for getting a few extra millions to lose him for free.
No, I agree. On the basis that he's now only got 1 year left, 60 million, you can't complain too much about it. Joe, do you see it that way as well? Or do you think we should have tried
to be fair as well, everything coming out of the club was that, well, not club, sorry, but everything we've read is that he was not going to sign a new deal. So the fact is, if we didn't make this deal now, he more than likely would have left on the free. So for me, 1 year left, 60 million quid, all in, I think it is good business by Chelsea, in all fairness, because like I said, that was the indication, was that he was going to run the contract out. And I think the fact that was the possibility and the more likely outcome, I think Chelsea done probably the right thing getting the deal done there. And I like the fact it was, it hasn't been too dirty and messy. That was what I was worried about, him having to do, trying to get out of his contract and all that sort of stuff, and asking to be sold. It was quite clean. Yeah, I think that's the better side of it.
Done before pre-season, in terms of what you're saying about that it didn't get dirty. I think that's why they tried to move quick now.
Yeah, I think if he would have done a transfer request and stuff like that, then it just, then you're kind of tarnishing what he's achieved and stuff, and people can say what they want about Mane, but you know, the fact of the matter is he did play a massive part for us winning that Champions League. You know, and you know, he was a big player for us, and he was one. You know, you kind of thought we were going to build sort of rank in certain aspects with you know, and the fact is, you know, he's gone, and Chelsea had to do something because he was going to run the contract out, and they done it. They took the money, and I think they got good money for him, especially with the 1 year.
There you go, fair play. And Emin, as much as I see why a lot of fans have that opinion, again, hold your horses by who we replace these players with. I know Nkunku came in, but we've not signed anybody else. We're going to sign Caicedo, hopefully, but otherwise we're still going to stick with Kepa, and we're signing all 18-year-olds. So like, I wouldn't be too sure to jump on that bandwagon. Oh, with no more mediocre players being praised. Don't know about that one. We'll see. But I do want to quickly read through the Athletic article about this now, just to see if they said anything more interesting.
I'm just going to quickly say, sorry, mate. You know, when there was like talks about, you know, he didn't want to sign a really long contract. He signed 5+1 years for the similar amount of money. So that obviously has turned out to be complete bollocks. Then
it's weird, isn't it? Because ever since that story was out, like just after the World Cup or around the World Cup, that he didn't want to sign that long of a contract. I feel like no one's said that anymore since then.
But he signed 6 years at United, so like that story must have been a nonsense then. Yeah,
and honestly, I can't remember where the story came from, but it must have come from somewhere, I guess. But yeah, let's read through this. This is the Athletic article from David Ornstein, so it doesn't really get more reliable than this. But yeah, Manchester United reach Mason Mount agreement with Chelsea in deal worth up to £60 million. Manchester United have reached an agreement with Chelsea to sign Mason Mount. That is literally just a headline. But anyway, United had a third bid worth £55 million rejected last week, but have now agreed to pay an initial fee of £55 million plus £5 million in difficult add-ons. Mount has been given permission to undergo a medical and finalise personal terms, with the clubs set to put the finishing touches to paperwork. United had warned Chelsea that they would not go above their improved £55 million offer and were considering alternatives, with the West London club making a counter-proposal of £58 million plus £7 million in add-ons, but talks between the clubs appear to have finally yielded a positive conclusion for all parties. Mount had a year left to run on his deal at Stamford Bridge, but contract negotiations cooled, and Chelsea were keen to comply with the England international's wishes over a potential exit. The 24-year-old is a product of the Chelsea Academy and has made 195 appearances for the club since his first team debut in 2017, scoring 33 goals. He spent 2 seasons out on loan at Vitesse Arnhem and Derby County between 2017 and 2019 before establishing himself as a first-team regular in Frank Lampard's first spell at Chelsea. Mount struggled with a pelvic injury towards the back end of the 2022-23 season and missed Chelsea's final day draw against Newcastle United. I mean, this is kind of different talk now. Not really much in this now that was particularly groundbreaking and we haven't heard of or known about before. I guess there is a little something from... I mean, there isn't a lot to it, I will say. I was going to say there's a little something else from Fabrizio Romano, but...
He's literally signed pretty much 5+1, 200k, pretty much identical contract to what he rejected. So you can't tell...
I don't think he rejected 200k when it was the long contract. Well, apparently they had a verbal agreement before the World Cup. So did he even ever reject the long contract? Do we even know?
Seems like somebody's broke down there, aren't it?
Yeah, because that's essentially, I imagine Chelsea would have offered, I mean, it might not be exactly 200k, but would have been roughly in that ballpark. He's signed at United pretty much a very similar contract to what he could have signed here.
Oh, well, but what he would have signed here, right? Because obviously the story is that he planned to sign a contract extension after the World Cup, but then Chelsea took it off the table. So
yeah,
I just want to be careful with sitting here like trying to throw. Well, what I've heard, I'm not as careful trying to throw shade at the club for this, but I am careful throwing too much shade at Man for this. And maybe that's me being naive. Maybe that's me being too loyal to someone that's not loyal to us. Fair enough. I don't know. But from what I have been told, it wasn't a case of Mount doesn't want to say and Mount doesn't want to sign a contract. He wanted to sign a contract. All of a sudden, Chelsea took it off the table, haven't given him a proper contract offer since, and now he's leaving. But at the end of the day, he's leaving now, so what can I do about it? I mean, just quickly before we move on to other topics, I suppose, because it's just going to make me depressed if we talk about this for too much longer, Joe. Do you reckon he's going to do well at United? I think you hinted at it earlier, because that's what I'm a little less sure about, because I don't really see how you put Bruno Fernandes and Mount in the same team.
Yeah, that's true.
Successfully.
That is true.
Now, you could have Casemiro behind them and play them two as 8s, and I guess Arsenal with Arteta and Havertz are going to do somewhat similar crazy things, attacking midfield 3s, but is that really going to work long term?
I think his main position is 8, isn't it? That was the one that he came out and said that he wanted to play. I'm pretty certain. So, the thing is, Casemiro is very good, isn't he? And I think that it's on the defensive side of it. Bruno don't really do too much in terms of defending. Mount obviously does press like mad, but I don't know. It could be a little lightweight, maybe. I'm not too sure about that. I think he's a good football player. I think we can't get away from that, and the fact that we've lost him. I think he needs to be replaced now as well. Definitely have to bring someone else in. Maybe Felix coming back. I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe something along those sort of lines. The Celta Vigo player was rumoured, wasn't he? But on the contract anyway, I that is very similar, isn't it, to what you've rejected? So something's either broken down. There was that rumour about image rights and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know too much about that, but maybe leeway in the contract than what there was on the offer from Chelsea. I'm just speculating. So I think he probably will do all right there, in all fairness. But hopefully you don't. That's just the way I am. I can't. Same thing with Havertz as well. Like when I hope they don't do very well there, but it's just a bloody shame, isn't it? Really, that's what I'd like to see him say.
Yeah, no, we obviously, but the difference for me between Mount and Havertz in this case is that we've seen Mount play really well for us, while with Havertz that's kind of still lacked a little bit, which is why I'm, on the one hand, more concerned that Kai will do well, because we will look stupid as a club, because they made him work, just we didn't. With Mount, it's a bit different because we used to make him work, and then God knows what happened. He started not playing as well, and we never came to a conclusion. Now he's gone. But if he does too well at Man United, it's going to be frustrating regardless. I mean, Wing with the super chat, appreciate it very much. They say Mount and Kai gone. Yes, average cornerstone's gone. Again, I will reiterate what I said. Let's see how average they were when we see how the replacements do, because the replacements might not do that well, and then we'll see, and then we'll sit there saying, "Oh, what a shame! Imagine we still had Kai and Mount." Hopefully that won't be the case, but I wouldn't be too sure about it just yet. But Charlie, do you think he's going to do well at Man United? We'll touch on Kai in a second as well. But who do you reckon is going to do better out of those two?
It's hard to tell, mate. It depends where he's going to play. I think obviously he'll probably play. I mean, I look at United and I would have thought they would have been better off signing someone to play alongside Casemiro. But but obviously they've gone with Mason Mount. Ten Hag wants him. Clearly he's got a plan for him. I suspect that he will play alongside Bruno Fernandes as an 8. I suspect he'll probably rotate with Christian Eriksen in that kind of second position. I suppose with that versatility, he could play wide at times if required. He's not been signed to play wide, I wouldn't have imagined, but I think he'll play as an 8 alongside Bruno, and he'll be the one that rotates with Eriksen. They've got Champions League, both domestic competitions as well. I think he will get plenty of minutes, and I think he probably will do pretty well, because good footballers have got a knack of doing well. So he's, the fact that people say that he's crap, right? But yet Man United want to sign him, who are arguably probably one of the biggest 2 clubs in the world alongside Real Madrid. So he can't be that shit. People say he's terrible, right? But then you look at the clubs that have been interested: United, Bayern to an extent, Liverpool, Arsenal and stuff. And you think, well, those clubs aren't interested in shit players. So you can have your thoughts, but don't reinvent the wheel and pretend that he's shit, because he clearly isn't. All right, he's gone, fine, but he's not shit, and I suspect he'll do very well at United.
Yeah, I hope not, but I fear that you might be right, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, do I have anything else really to say about this Mason?
Thing is on Mason Mount as well, when people say what they say about, about him being crap in that, football's a very short-term thing. It's very much like, what are you doing for me now? And the fact he had such a poor season last season, I think, you can kind of get caught up in that sort of, and you forget about the good, because there is a good player in there. And I think to call him crap or terrible, I think it's very, very dramatic. I think, but yeah, last season I personally think that he was poor, and I was expecting more of him. But that's just my point of view. But it's very short term in football, very short sighted.
Right? But the one thing I'd say is, who wasn't poor last season? Now, maybe Reece James wasn't poor while actually fit, but that lasted for about 2 weeks where he was actually fit. Because even when he came back from injury, he wasn't that good, because he wasn't fully fit. And other than him, only Thiago Silva was half decent throughout the season. So yeah, I agree. he was poor. I guess that's partly why we're also selling a lot of players, but everyone was poor. And that literally, maybe not.
Could that be because of his expectations?
Dreadful times, right? Chilwell had dreadful times. Cucurella had more than dreadful times. I mean, Sterling. Let's not even talk.
Maybe since you expect more from him, maybe.
Sterling was dog shit. Like, but only Kepa and Thiago Silva were good last season. Everyone else poor.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But maybe it's just the expectation of the player, isn't it? You know, people expect him to be more than what he was giving us. Maybe that, and they focus on it as well because he's money name. You got to remember, you know, he wasn't a big money sign in and stuff like that. So maybe people don't, you know, we're probably harsher on him because of that in many ways, because they feel like, you know, we could go and buy someone for 100 million quid that plays in your position better, and they, you know, they get on more because they feel like we could be getting someone else there for more money, maybe. But I just think it's a short-term view on football, and I think that's what it is. I think a lot of people just see the now and they forget about what has happened in the past, where he was a massive part of us winning that Champions League, in my opinion. And I think that's what it is. You can't call him crap or terrible. I think that's silly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Lee, that is actually my local club. What you're talking about, FC Regensburg, even if we're nowadays in the 5th division of Austria. But, you know, that's a different topic. But yeah, I mean, like you touched on, Joe, really, at the end of the day, it is what it is now. We'll see in a few days. I'm sure Mount will release his statement, and then we'll read that and see what he says. You know, we've gotten quite used to reading departure and goodbye messages over the last few days. That's also one thing. I've had enough. I know that we needed to have departures. Mate. Sorry?
There's so many, mate. We've got a fucking template for them all.
Literally, that's what I'm saying. I'm tired of the sales now, right? Like, okay, I know we need to sell a lot of players, but let's get some signings in. I know we got Nicolas Jackson done. I know
we need to get Caicedo in.
Yeah, get Caicedo in. I know we are now signing Angelo Gabriel for 15 million, who's no one's ever heard of. But none of those have been made official outside of Nkunku. So give me something to cheer me up a little bit, because at the moment, I can't be bothered with these departures anymore.
Something from Steinberg in the last couple minutes. Well, I mean, this could be a club briefing. It's so hard to know what to believe, but he's written that Chelsea made several offers to Mount, the highest worth around 200k a week. But I mean, I don't really know. I'm not sure we know how true that is.
Say that?
CFC Daily, like 1 minute ago.
Must have been in the article, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally don't believe it for a second, and Jacob Steinberg has done a lot of waffle over this last few weeks. But yeah, I don't know. This is just screams club brief to me so hard that. But at the same time, obviously, I'm somewhat biased because I've been told things where I'm like, that seems believable, and I trust those sources. So I'm like,
someone's lying big time, by the way. Someone's not being honest. It's either Mount's camp are lying or the club are lying. I suspect it's both of them are lying.
We'll never find out. We'll never find out the truth. So that's the thing, innit?
That is the next issue, absolutely. All right. I guess as we're talking about departure statements, goodbye statements, should we bring up the one from Kai? Obviously, as everybody heard, now it even annoys me even more because he's got the Arsenal profile picture now. But obviously, there was kind of stuff leaked about his first interview and his reveal and announcement or whatever. So he says, "Dear Chelsea FC, I would have preferred for you to hear my thoughts on leaving Chelsea first from myself before my thoughts on me joining my new team. This isn't my style, and it upsets me that you had to hear it in this way. I write this letter with a heavy heart to all the fans. A big thank you for all your support. We achieved the dream of winning the Champions League together." Kai, and then let me just zoom in a little bit so you guys can read along, even though I'm sure most of you will have read it already. He says, "Today I find myself at a crossroads where words can't describe the emotions I'm feeling. It is with a heavy heart that I write this letter, saying goodbye to the club that has become my second home, and to the incredible fans who have supported me throughout this amazing journey. Together we have experienced the highs and the lows, the joys and the heartaches. I want to thank each and every Chelsea supporter, member of staff, coaches and my teammates for the last years. Joining Chelsea 3 years ago was a big moment in my life, and I'm looking back on these years with nothing but pride, gratefulness, and lots of sports success. From winning the Champions League in my first season to winning the Super Cup and the Club World Cup, and now saying goodbye. It's been quite a journey that I will never forget. Every second of my time with Chelsea, I identified with what it means to represent the club on and off the pitch, and I hope that everyone remembers me for this. I'm looking back at memories that last a lifetime. The club will forever be in my heart, and I made friends for life. It was an honor to be part of Chelsea's history. Thank you, Kai." Obviously, what everyone took part on, every second of my time identify with what it means to be Chelsea. And then he goes to Arsenal, which obviously people didn't take too nicely to. At the same time, my response is, well, apparently he's learned beating Chelsea means we abuse our own players rather than supporting them. So really going to a rival kind of fits that tone. But that's obviously me playing slight devil's advocate. Joe, obviously we spoke when I was on your channel the other day about Kai's departure. Now you saw that, the goodbye message. Obviously the main thing for that is we got 65 million and he won us the Champions League in the meantime. So we kind of did well in the grand scheme of things. It's another frustrating one because they're all going to rivals. But unfortunately, that's kind of something we're probably going to have to get used to as Premier League fans, because the only league that has money is the Premier League. So if you want to sell a player that's half decent and you want a good chunk of money for, you're going to have to sell him to the Prem, Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, maybe PSG. But Chelsea can't deal with PSG anymore because they hate us after that Ziyech debacle. So we essentially have Real Madrid and Bayern Munich to deal with if we want to sell outside of England and Saudi Arabia, but within Europe, right? So I guess we got good money. It is what it is. But yeah, thoughts on the departure? Thoughts on the statement of him?
Yeah, well? with Kai Havertz, the fact of the matter is, with me, is people, Arsenal fans at the moment, they're going around their business saying, they've signed this fantastic football player and all that sort of stuff. The fact is, whatever he achieves at Arsenal, he was not going to do that at Chelsea. I think we've seen enough of that to know that he wasn't ever really going to reach his potential at Chelsea. As in being the child, the fact is, if you do these sort of messages and that, you go into a rival, for me, that just cancels it anyway, especially Arsenal. But as I did, Beal, the fact is, for me, I'm kind of numb to it. And the fact that, because we got pretty much what we paid for him, I don't particularly care what he does there, good or bad. The fact is, we got what we paid for. We bought him in. It didn't work consistently enough. And, that's my thoughts on it. I just think that, I don't particularly care what he does there. Thank you for the goal in the Champions League final. But other than that, apart from a few games here or there, he wasn't the player we thought we were going to get. And the fact we got pretty much what we paid for him, it's a win-win for us. He can go and do what he wants. If he goes and he's fantastic for them, I don't particularly care. We didn't lose too much on him. That's just my thing on it anyway.
Fair dues, mate. Charlie, do you see it similar to Joe?
Yeah, look, ultimately, as you touched on, mate, the Premier League is going to give you the most money for these players. So there is going to be a lot of selling to quote unquote rivals. And, that's the reality of the situation. This is not a small sample size of Kai Havertz. This is 3 seasons where, other than the odd moment in a couple of games, he's been terrible. And I think that's putting it lightly. Zero consistency. So what 32 goals I saw in 130 odd appearances for the club. Yeah. When he's played the majority of his minutes as a number 9. It's poor. It's not good enough.
It is, absolutely.
It's not good enough for the investment we put in him and the player that was at Leverkusen and the expectation. We've not received what we bought, basically. It's like, when you order something online, you get sent the wrong products. It's the same thing with Havertz, mate. We bought something and they've obviously not sent us what we paid for. So,
it only turned up on a few special occasions. Then the real one turned up. Otherwise, we had the fake twin.
but I look at it and I think, right, do you know what? If he goes and does well at Arsenal, so be it. He wasn't doing the business at Chelsea. So if he does well somewhere else, fine. But he hasn't been doing it for our team. So why are we losing sleep over selling him? £65 million is a great piece of business for Kai Havertz. We've barely lost any money on our investment 3 years ago. And 3 poor seasons, right? To pretty much make your money back is quite remarkable business, if we're being honest. And
we have to remember we did pay him wages for 3 years, so we did lose some money.
But in terms of a transfer fee, we've pretty much got our outlay back, which is remarkable considering 3 poor seasons of football. You would have thought his transfer value would have dropped quite a lot. Look, he's 24 years of age. He's got potential to improve. He's not a bad footballer. He's got talent. He's a talented boy. It hasn't worked out at Chelsea. He couldn't deliver the goods for us, whether that's on him or on us, a combination of the both. And if he does well at Arsenal, then that's what it is. He wasn't doing well for Chelsea. So that's ultimately what it boils down to. Is he doing well for my team? No. Then you sell underperforming players. So we've sold him. And if he does well at Arsenal, it doesn't mean it's a mistake to sell him because he wasn't doing well for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
I can't put it too differently. One thing that irks me a little bit, and which is arguably why the Kai one even annoys me a little more than the Mount one, or annoys me more is maybe the wrong word, but Arteta's statement on signing Havertz. He said, Kai's a player of top quality, he has great versatility, and he's an intelligent player. But then the main bit for me is he will bring a huge amount of extra strength to our midfield and variety to our play. And the fact that Chelsea, when they announced his departure yesterday, said striker leaves Chelsea, that's the problem in and of itself for me. And to be honest, it also applies to Mount a little bit, because how long did we really get to see him as a number 8? Not much, other than his first season. Shocker, that was his best season. Do you know what I mean? And ever since then, it kind of started to tail off more and more and more. Now, he did adapt to playing in a front three of a 3-4-3 for a while, but it was never really it. But for Havertz, and maybe that's just me, and maybe I rate him more than others, I totally understand. But to me, I still think if we played Kai, because people say we've tried him in every position, which is obviously true, but we didn't try him in any position other than the 9 often enough to really judge if he's good at it or not. Because playing a couple of games on a Frank as an 8, that's not enough to judge whether that's good enough.
Could you imagine, though, mate, if we'd fielded Mount and Havertz as number 8s, the uproar there would have been?
But there's uproar about our lineups anyway.
Yeah, true. There is.
So, there's uproar about every lineup we have anyway. But to me, there is still a great player in Kai Havertz that you need to make use of properly. And I don't feel like we did that whatsoever. Even if you want to use him as a 9 or false 9, I think even then we used him wrong. Because we literally turned him into a target man rather than a false 9 that can actually drop and create space for others and others to go in behind. Because we never have anyone running in behind. And then we have nobody to try to play passes in behind until Enzo turned up. So that's my arc with it. And if Arsenal make him work as an 8, I will flip my shit, honestly. I will flip my shit because I'm like, who are these morons at our football club who are like, yeah, chuck him up front for 3 years straight? I'm like, what the fuck? But hey, if it goes like that, it goes like that. It is what it is.
Well, the plan was Lukaku, weren't it? Kai wasn't meant to be there. The plan was the plan was Lukaku, weren't it? And that was the thing. He was meant to be the one that was going to be leading the line, and we all know how that turned out. So I don't think
what we would have done with Havertz then. Would he have been on the bench? Would we have given him a different position? Who knows?
Would he have played slightly behind, maybe? Play behind Lukaku.
Planning of Chelsea, that's for sure.
But that was also the old regime, weren't it? So everyone. You see a lot of hate at the moment for Boli's regime, but there was also mistakes made towards the back end of the Roman thing as well, and that's why there's such a big clear out at the moment as well, because you had essentially 3 or 4 managers' teams all molded into one, and then next year Graham Potter's there, he pops up and gets it, and now he's got a squad of 31 players, and he's thinking, what the hell's going on here? So that is why we are doing this mass sale at the moment. And, it was needed. So they're kind of putting certain things right, in my opinion. Yes, Boli has not been perfect. I'm not trying to say he has. He's been, on the manager side, he's been very, very poor. But what he's doing this summer, I think, it's been needed for a few seasons. And the fact that he's doing it now, I think it is good.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I guess we continue on a few more outgoing bits of news. Obviously, kind of already confirmed a couple of days ago. Or not confirmed, but essentially confirmed. Ruben Loftus-Cheek has now completed his medical with AC Milan and will sign the contract in the afternoon, and we will receive £60 million plus £4 million in add-ons. Again, I'm going to say thanks, Ruben. Good luck. I hope he does well. At least he's not going to a rival, so I'm buzzing with that.
You're going to get an AC Milan shirt with Ruben on the back, mate.
I'm considering it because their kit is banging as well.
Mate, you might have to. You can just hang it up in the back somewhere.
Exactly. I had to, just before we went live, by the way, I had to get rid of this one. This was here.
You can still have it.
There's 2 different ones now. Yeah. I had to get rid of this one. Mason, I paid £10 for this, literally, to put it in my background. I didn't think you were fucking leaving. What the fuck? Do you know what I mean? now I've got to put it in my drawer and never use it again. Oh, my days. Do you know what I mean? But there is actually rumours of another player joining AC Milan. This one is less of a serious source, just Price hasn't tweeted it. It tells you enough about it, really. But from Matteo Moretto, whichever way it is, Christian Pulisic have apparently got an outline on personal terms, but there is still distance between Chelsea and Milan on price. Apparently, we want about 21 million, and they don't want to pay more than 15. Although Nathan Gissing on Tuesday told us that there's absolutely a potential that he leaves on a loan with an obligation to buy him at the end of that loan, which could happen. He's another one of those, isn't he, Joe? Another one of those players that is, at least in my opinion, without a shadow of a doubt, better than they've been able to show at Chelsea. But they've been at Chelsea for long enough now that I don't think they're going to be able to show it at Chelsea anymore. So at that point, you just have to get rid. Even if I do think it's unfortunate. And if Pulisic managed to be the way he was in Project Restart all the time, he'd probably be one of the first names on our team sheet every week. But unfortunately, he only managed to play like that for like 2 or 3 months. And that was kind of it. But at the end of the day, hey, if we find someone to sell him to, it's good. But then we only have 3 wingers left, and we've not really been linked to anyone to replace them. So that's still concerning.
Yeah, with Pulisic, I think, I felt like in Project Restart, I feel we were sold a dream in many ways because he was that good. But does that not tell you a little bit about him as well? Like when the pressure was off, the intensity was slightly down, we saw the best version of him at Chelsea. Could it have just been the league? Maybe he just couldn't, adapt to it, the pace of it, the intensity of it. But, the fact that his best time at Chelsea was in lockdown, when it was down, kind of suggests that for me anyway. If we can, get a good bit of money for him, 20 million quid, I think, with his injury record as well, I think it's one that, I'm not too fussed if he goes, in all fairness. And it is one that I probably would say it's not probably going to work for him at Chelsea. There was that thing about Pochettino saying that he was one of the players that he wanted to work with. I remember when Poch first got rumoured with us and that, but obviously that went quiet, and now it does seem that he is going to leave. I think he'll do well at AC Milan, a slightly slower league. But for me, it's definitely one I would be making that transfer if I was Todd Bowley. I would get rid of him and see if I can get some money for him and invest maybe again. But we are maybe in the winger position, which means we might have to go out and get another one. I think Nkunku can play over there.
More, which is half the problem. But I do agree. And also from his perspective, I would absolutely take the deal. Although I don't really know where they're going to play him, because obviously Rafael Leao is still there. So that's the left winger sorted. Are they going to play him on the right?
You'd have to go on the right, wouldn't he?
You'd have to play right. I think they're signing Adama Traore from Wolves as well, AC Milan.
I think that was between basically what I saw on that yesterday was that Pulisic is 20 million euros and Milan don't want to pay that, so they were going to go for Traore. That's what I saw there. I think it's one or the other. I think.
Yeah, that would make more sense if they sign both. I mean, they lost Brahim Diaz, who they obviously used to play as a 10, but they're also getting Ruben, who, in my opinion, if you get Ruben, you should be playing a midfield 3, not a midfield 2. So then you don't have a number 10 if you do play a midfield 3. So who knows what they're going to do with that? But Charlie, obviously, like I say, maybe not the most reliable source. Hence, again, that's why Pice didn't tweet about it. But I think we all hope that he goes. I think,
it's time to move on, mate. Like, as we've said, he came in for a lot of money, 63 million quid, whenever it was under Sarri. He's had a few moments here and there, but he just hasn't delivered on a consistent basis. And, there's ability there, but ultimately we haven't seen that ability in a Chelsea shirt. And it doesn't look like we're ever going to see that ability in a Chelsea shirt. So there's no point keeping the guy around. I question his attitude at times. I'm not sure if it looks like that he really wants to be at the club. I think that's pretty sure. Actually, I'm pretty certain he doesn't want to be at the club. So, look, if it ends up being a loan with an obligation, if we can't get 20, just take 15 and move on. This is not the new ownership's money. So, Pulisic, he just hasn't done the business for me. And people saying, has he been played consistently? Well, at times not. But you earn the right to play consistently by being good. And he's not done that for me. So, I don't think anyone's going to lose any sleep over Pulisic leaving Chelsea, because how many years has he been in now? 3-4 years? Not been good enough. Hasn't been good enough.
4, I think,
I think it is 4. If it was Sarri, wouldn't it be 4, I think?
Oh, so he must have 1 year left on his contract, and so he probably would have signed a 5-year deal.
No, but we signed him in the January under Sarri, and then obviously
loaned him.
So he joined under Frank,
But
first season under Frank, not second.
Yeah, he's not ultimately, he's not been good enough. It's as simple as that.
No, it's difficult. I do agree with people that say he hasn't been given a proper chance at times. Some of that was his own fault, is not the right word, but some of this was down to injuries, not managers being unfair. But there was also periods where I felt, why did Pulisic get dropped now? Whether that was on a Tuchel, whether that was on a Lampard, whether that was even on a Potter this season, where I'm like, why drop him now? It's not like the others are doing any better, at least because at least since Project Restart, I don't think Pulisic just started more than 5 games in a row, other than maybe when he had to do a couple of shifts at wing back when we had injuries. But so I do think he hasn't quite been given the full chance. But at the same time, there's also training. You earn yourself that chance. And I'm not there, so I can't fully judge that. But if 3-4 managers basically don't give him enough of a chance, in most people's opinion, then, that tells you something as well. Some of the managers we had might have been clowns, but not all of them. And none of them really picked him. So I guess make of that what you will to some extent as well. But we also have some incoming news. Isn't that shocking? Absolutely. No one's ever heard of him. But Chelsea have agreed a £15 million fee for 2004-year-born talented Brazilian, not striker, but winger, Angelo Gabriel. And Fabrizio already gave the here we go yesterday. Angelo agreed personal terms on a deal until 2029. He'll start preseason at Chelsea and then possibly go on loan, according to Simon Johnson, most likely going to go on loan to Strasbourg. Although we are also trying to buy a club in Portugal. So then I think that is probably the more likely destination. Obviously, here it says at the bottom, Barcelona have a clause that they had 48 hours to match Chelsea's bid, but they will not do so. And that was confirmed again after that. What I've read about him since then, and obviously I'm not going to sit there and claim to know, but what I've read about him since is that he's the best dribbler in Brazil currently. Not the best Brazilian dribbler, but the best dribbler playing in Brazil. But he really needs to work on his finishing and decision-making in the final third. So really, it just fits right in at Chelsea. Absolutely wonderful. So we're just replacing players that can't finish with younger players that can't finish. I guess more likelihood of them improving. But I mean, I'll start with you, Charlie. I assume you don't know or didn't know anything about him before yesterday either.
No, I'd never heard of him. Honestly, mate, I'll be honest, I'd never heard of him until before yesterday. Yeah. It's another one of those signings that
he's played a lot of games for Santos.
Over 100 games.
Over 100 games already for Santos.
At 18, I think he was playing for the under-20s at 15 for Brazil. I think he's also he's either the youngest or second youngest player to score in the Copa Libertadores, so the South American Champions League. I think he scored in that when he was 16. There's clearly ability there. There's a reason we've signed him. Obviously, he's not going to be he'll do pre-season, but he's not going to be part of the first team squad next season unless he does exceptionally well. But I don't even think, even if he did do exceptionally well, I'm not sure if that's best for his development to be like a fourth choice rotation winger. I suspect go on loan to Strasbourg, play under Vieira, and
which I'm not sure about why Vieira, by the way. I'm not sure if that's the best choice, but sure.
Yeah, look, it's another one of those that, I guess it's slightly exciting, could be really good. Might not make
at least he's not 15 and could theoretically actually play for us now.
that is true. But ultimately, mate, it's another one of these as we look to build, it's a development player. Again, it's another development player. So it's, you obviously want first teamers to come through the door. We need first teamers to come through the door. But look, I don't hate this signing, but it's one of those that we can't really make a judgment on for at least a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying Kennedy 2.0. People have made that judgment from a few clips and comps as well. I'm like, well, he plays on the other side. Kennedy literally played left wing. He plays right wing. So as much as they're both left-footed, how can they be the same already when they're playing a complete opposite side of the football pitch? But any which way. Joe, obviously you won't have heard of him before yesterday either. No. But in general, what do you make of this kind of signing along with many similar ones? Even though someone like Andre Santos, at least from what you hear from the club and stuff, that they seem very hyped about Andre Santos. I'm not sure anyone's going to be as hyped about Angelo, but it's another 18-year-old Brazilian. I mean, I guess the idea is, okay, we just buy all the potential superstars when they're 18, when we sign them for 15, 20 mil. And then if they become superstars, we sell them for 100 mil or they play for us. And if they don't become superstars, we sell them for 25, 30 mil in 3 years' time. I assume that's the plan, but I'm like, I thought you really wanted to highlight the academy, and that's why I'm like, I know we don't have that many wingers from the academy, but I'm like, there is also Omari Hutchinson, so I'm like, I don't know. I'm just a little bit concerned that we're spending a bit too much effort and resources on these types of players. If they work out, great, but we will only know that for sure in a few years' time. But for now, I'm like, I hope we're not wasting money, resources, time, and everything else here.
Yeah, the thing is with Todd Bowley at the moment is every time you get an interview from him, when he's not saying something ridiculous like we're going to beat Real Madrid 3-0 at the Bernabeu, he always says long term. He says it seems every time I see someone, he's always saying. So this is obviously the plan. This is what they want to do. Obviously, this time last year when they just took over, it was a bit slightly different. They were buying more recognised names. I think obviously Tuchel people they wanted to do, and I think they were a bit late to the party in terms of the takeover and when they could start talking to players and stuff like that. So they probably rushed in that way and brought in the people like the Koulibalys and whatnot. But now, obviously, they've got the time and they're setting that up now. And it is a long-term project. They keep saying that. And obviously, these young players they're bringing in like Chukwuemeka and stuff like that obviously play a big part in that. But like you said as well, you bring these players in, you've got to develop them. And the way that you do that is by giving them good structured loan deals And, you know, you look at the back end of the last season with Chukwuemeka, for example, you know, he wasn't played when he should have been played. And, you know, there's obviously a long-term project here, and we need to make sure we manage it. Otherwise, you do end up with the risk of you're wasting the money. You know, you're paying 15 million quid for him. You know, you could chuck that 15 million quid towards, you know, getting Caicedo quicker maybe, or Lavia, or, you know, something like that. So they've obviously got a plan in their head what they're doing, and that's why we're buying them. But hopefully it don't turn out that we're wasting the money.
No, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't. But I guess only time will tell. At the same time, you know, he's not done anything wrong. So I just hope he succeeds. And I hope he gets his teeth done. No, I'm joking. But yeah, otherwise, a few more interesting pieces of news. Someone saying we need a DM. All right, so I'll bring up, you know, quickly. Fabrizio has now confirmed basically that here we go for Ruben. Not that we needed it. We literally had the medical today, and we knew all that was left was signing the contract. Not everybody is Man United and like David De Gea, do you know what I mean? So that is. Has everybody heard about this, by the way? So yeah. Man United and De Gea had agreed a deal for a new contract in which he takes a massive pay cut from his last contract, and then he signed it. But then United pulled out of it and gave him an even lower wage contract. Like, what the fuck are these not doing? My God, did they need to fork out some extra cash to pay Mount, or what was happening? Because that is just mental to me. But because some were talking about DM, Fabrizio said yesterday, get ready. We are entering into key moments for Moises Caicedo. Let's see if it will be a saga or a fast negotiation. Chelsea are ready to attack the situation this week and then continue the conversation in the next days. Caicedo already says yes to Chelsea. Not much more to read into that. We kind of discussed Caicedo at length plenty of times on here, but just get it done, Chelsea, please, for the love of God.
Yeah,
just, you know, the main thing for me is get it done before we fly out to America. Like, he must be on that plane to America. He cannot, like, the 2 weeks before that, he can do the fitness work in Brighton. I don't care about that. But once we fly out to America and do all the tactical stuff, he needs to be there. He absolutely has to be there. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Joe, I think we spoke about it on your channel, but is Caicedo a player you're a fan of?
I just lost. Can you repeat that? Sorry, mate. I just lost saying.
All good. Are you a fan of Caicedo?
Yeah, massively, mate. I think him and Enzo Fernandez, I think, could be fantastic together. I know people say that a lot, and I've spoke about Caicedo a hell of a lot on my channel. But I think it is one we have to get over the line as soon as possible, because it's not just for now, is it? He's only 20. I think he's 21 years old, 21, 22. You know, he's got bags of talent, and I really like the idea of him and Enzo Fernandez next to each other. I really do.
Yeah, there you go, Charlie. I'm not going to get your thoughts on Caicedo again. We've discussed it plenty. Once there are serious bids and serious movements, we will talk about it again. Something interesting, it literally was just released as we're streaming here. Chelsea women, only Chelsea women, not Chelsea overall, have agreed a partnership with Lego as some sort of sponsor. I'm not sure if that's going to be training kits.
On the shirt, is it? Lego?
Yeah, Lego on the shirt will be a bit dodgy. I don't think so. At the same time, maybe the women's team were like, nah, we're not taking stake. And we're like, we're going to get something different. I'm not sure if Lego is going to be much better look-wise, but at least better PR, I guess, than stake at least. No, but if it's for the training kits or for the sleeve or whatever, I'm like, I don't mind. It's a reasonable sponsor. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of fun, nothing dodgy to do with it. No Saudi money, no oil money, no betting, no gambling, and no alcohol or whatever else, no dodgy crypto. Something simple, straightforward. Lego. Do you know what I mean? Do your thing, I guess. That's my thoughts on it, Charlie. Other than the logo and it being red and everything, not really working with us. Other than that, much to say.
Well, it could just be a sponsor like Cadbury's. It could be nothing to do with the pitch. It could be nothing to do with anything on the pitch at all. I can't imagine that going on the shirt. It would look pretty shit, if we're being honest, if it's like that.
Especially with the square logo. Imagine that.
I mean, maybe it's just a partnership to bring out some new Lego sets, mate. Could be a fucking...
I mean, if they only did the Lego writing, literally the writing without the red bit around it, then it would look okay, I reckon. But
mate, it could be some massive Lego Stamford Bridges coming to the mega store. Who knows?
Maybe.
I mean, it says official creative play partner, but who knows what that means?
I don't even know what that means, mate. If it's on the training kits or something, then great. But I mean, surely the men and women's team would have the same sponsors, wouldn't they?
I mean, Bayern, they don't. The Bayern women's shirt have Allianz as the main front kit sponsor, and the men's team have T-Mobile. So I guess.
Well, who knows? Might be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could bring in more money that way, I suppose, if you have a separate sponsorship for the women's team and the men's team, I suppose. But yeah, there you go, Joe. Much of a thought on this, other than it will probably look terrible?
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go on the shirt. I don't particularly mind what ends up there, really. I don't really look at that side of that sort of thing, in all fairness. Like, it's not really my forte. I don't know too much about it. But yeah, I think it looked terrible on the shirt, in all fairness.
Yeah, fair it is. All right. Interesting one now that I want to talk about at a bit more length, because Chelsea fans are certainly not in full agreement over the situation. So Fabrizio said early this morning, 1 a.m., well, 1:37 a.m. my time, nearly 1 a.m. UK time, Chelsea are looking for a young goalkeeper or experienced goalkeeper to create competition, as Kepa is going to be the number one. Also, the Pies tweet below, if you read that, Chelsea don't want to spend 60 million plus on a goalkeeper, no crazy money, no Onana or Maignan. Interestingly, since then, it's come out that Manchester United are in discussion with Inter for Onana, and then Fabrizio said he's going to cost about 50 to 55 million euros. I'm like, what? so we're not talking 60 million here. So we're talking less. I'll start with you on this one first, Joe, because I feel like I've talked to Charlie many times about Kepa. What is your opinion if we go into the season with Kepa as the number one?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of it, in all fairness. I think he showed glimmers last season at times where the Aston Villa save gets played a lot. But I've said on my channel a few times as well, is that if you look at all the most successful teams of the past 20 years, even probably longer than that, they've always had a big, strong, secure goalkeeper in goal. And the fact is, I don't think Kepa fits that criteria. The fact is as well is, he keeps, conceding goals from long shots. And that is just not, that's a pattern. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And it is a problem. And teams are trying their luck. Yes, some of them are world is. But at the end of the day, it continuously happens. And as I just think if we're going to be big challengers next season, I would be more assured that we would do that with a big, strong goalkeeper than what it is with Kepa, because I always feel there is a mistake in there for him. And, I've also said that what Poch wants, Poch should get. But for me, I would be out there for another goalkeeper. Onana, that sort of quality would definitely be where I'd be looking, because I just think if you're a big successful team, you have that goalkeeper. Remember Liverpool, they lost the Champions League final with Callas in goal. They went and got Alisson, and then they ended up winning it. Ederson, they had the same thing. I think they had Bruno, and then they had Bravo. Sorry, they had Bravo. Then they brought in Ederson, and that's just the fact. Most successful teams have a big, strong goalkeeper at the back. That obviously everyone makes mistakes, but 9 times out of 10, they're solid. And I just don't have that confidence in Kepa. So for me, it is definitely a position that I would be investing in.
Yeah, there you go. It's interesting because Ederson, when he joined City, I don't think he was that great. He was great with the ball at his feet, but he did some dodgy things otherwise, I must say. And obviously improved since then. And Kepa should have had that time to improve already. I guess to some extent he already did, but not quite to the extent that we all want. I've said many times, to me, I think we should improve on a goalkeeper. But I also understand that we have other priorities first. But then again, if the only striker we're going to sign is Nicolas Jackson, then why not spend proper money on a goalkeeper? But if we're going to end up signing another 80, 90, 100, maybe even more £1 million striker, then I understand why we would give Kepa another year. He's proved that he's good enough to get us top 4. Now we only need top 5 anyway for Champions League. So he's proved that he's good enough for that part. So I guess you do another year with him and then buy a different one. What I disagree with, though, or what I'm a bit more concerned about with, is the whole young goalkeeper. Well, I'm like, we already bought Slonina last year. So if we buy another young goalie, in my opinion, that will be utterly stupid. I'm not saying Slonina should be the backup right now. I don't know if he's good enough for that. I'll be perfectly honest. But I just don't think we should get another young one. That doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, I've also said that many times. There's so many changes going on. I know people always like to laugh at me when I say Kepa is the leader. To me, I don't even think that's debatable, that he's a leader. You might not think he's good enough, but to debate whether he's a leader to me is ridiculous. But regardless of that, there's not many players that have the attitude of Kepa that are like never causing any issues. Now he's even turned up as captain, and he's the only one that shouts at the back. Even Thiago Silva doesn't shout much. He only shouts when he loses his shit properly. Otherwise, he doesn't shout much. And who else is going to shout? What? Fofana, Badiashile, Kobo? Do you know what I mean? if you chuck another young goalie in the back, obviously Maignan or Nana would be different, but it would still be another player. So I'm okay if we do it Kepa for another year. And I guess if Poch and his goalkeeper coach think they can take him to the next level, great. Let's see how it goes. In an ideal world, I'd also prefer to replace him. I'm still not fully on board with Onana being that much better than Kepa. He's better, sure. But is he that much better? I don't know. Maignan will be a different story, but if he's too expensive...
You don't want to join the League of the Champions League football. That's the rumor at the moment. Because that's the one that I would go and get. I watch a lot of AC Milan, and he's top draw. He is. If I could pick one, that would be the one that I'd go and get. Exactly. But apparently he doesn't want to go.
Because if they hadn't got their points deduction, Milan wouldn't even be in the Champions League. So therefore, he would be much more easy to get out of AC Milan because they wouldn't be in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But Charlie, where do you sit on this? Obviously, you've said many a times that you're not the biggest fan of Kepa. You don't think he's quite good enough. Now, Mendy has left already. Kepa, you did say it earlier, Kepa had a pretty good season. Now, there was a few games where he did still make mistakes, but he certainly had more good games than bad games in my books. And how many Chelsea players can I say that about this season? Not many. So I do personally think Kepa is incredibly overhated by this fan base. I understand that part of it is we signed him as the most expensive goalkeeper in the world. We all expected him to be amazing, and then he really wasn't. The whole Carabao Cup final drama obviously didn't help the reputation either. I understand. And I accept people saying he's not good enough to be our number one long term and to win us the league. I understand that completely, and I even agree with that. But I do still think he's overhated.
No, he's massively overhated. Like, you know, he like some of the games last season we could have got hammered in if it wasn't for him. Villa away, a prime example. We should have lost that game. But we won. Brighton at home could have been 4-5-6-1 if it wasn't for him. He performed very well last season. And look, yes, I'm fully aware that we need to upgrade the goalkeeping position if we want to be serious and win Premier Leagues and win the big trophies. I absolutely don't think Kepa's got that quality in him to do that. And then at the same time, you know, if there's not a goalkeeper around that we want or we feel that we're priced out, don't just sign a goalkeeper for the sake of it. Bring in someone experienced as a number two.
That's what we literally did with Kepa.
Yeah.
Don't do it again.
Bring someone experienced in as a number two and reassess the goalkeeper market in a year's time where Maignan might be available if we're back in the Champions League or whatever it is. But I look at the Onana thing and you think, well, surely Chelsea can't be pulling out for financial reasons because 55 million euros is not very much money for a top goalkeeper. My only thought must be that either the club have changed their mind on him or more likely he said that he wants to join Man United instead of us. And we just don't want to go through the public sort of humiliation, as it were, of being turned down by a player. Maybe we just know that he wants United and doesn't want us. Because if Onana, who had been our target, who like all the data, etc., supporting, he's a good player for us to sign. I think Vivel, one of the directors, was definitely a big fan of his. At 55 million euros tops for a very good goalkeeper, you're not going to get a very good goalkeeper for anything less than that. That's at the cheap end of the scale for a top goalkeeper. So exactly. I'm not really sure what the plan is. Like
I said, the only way I accept this is if we're getting a real big striker.
There was the link to Costa earlier in the week. The Porto goalkeeper. I saw a link there. I think that was 75 million euros. I can't monitor say I've seen a lot of him. I saw him in the World Cup. I've seen him a few times for Porto. What's your opinions on that? Would you see that as an upgrade from Kepa? Would you accept that?
It is an upgrade, but it's more expensive than Onana.
Is it an upgrade?
He had a stalker in the World Cup a couple of times in Qatar. I remember seeing a few mistakes there.
That's what I'm saying.
But is he that sort of
better than Kepa? But would he be a real upgrade? I don't know, man.
I think Maignan is the one. That's the one that I wish we could go and get. I wish, I think I rate him highly. I think he could be that. One for a long period of time. So hopefully we can maybe get in Champions League football. If we have, the thing is at the moment, I think there's bigger problems than just the goalkeeper. I think the midfield needs a complete revamp there. We've gutted it completely. We've gone to get Caicedo. There has to be another one there. And then maybe the elite striker rumors going around as well. Maybe there. So I don't think Kepa is the biggest, or replace Kepa is the biggest problem at the moment. But I definitely think going into the future, when you're challenging for the big trophies and that, you need someone at the back that you can be reassured that, he's not going to make a mistake. He's not going to, concede an absolute worldie or like a massive long shot or whatnot. I just think you need to have that big presence, that big personality, that big shot stopper at the back, and Kepa just don't fit that criteria for me. That's just my opinion on that.
No, and I hear that, and I don't even disagree with
that. It wouldn't be a disaster if we kept him in goal for one more season as number one. Like people think that saying that he's terrible, like acting like he was the reason we came 12th. Yeah, absolutely.
No, definitely not.
The defense, we were top 5. We were in the top 5 in the defense in the league. The reason we were 12 was because we couldn't score any fucking goals. We were 30, 40 goals short. I think we scored 38 goals. That's averaging a goal a game. We're 30 to 40 goals short. So, you know, another season of Kepa in goal really isn't a disaster. I'd rather us do that than just rush and sign a keeper we don't really want for the sake of signing someone. You know, number one goal is something we've got to get right. And you know, just bring in someone that's a number 2 or whatever, and then reassess it in a year's time, because it's clear that obviously Onana, either we've changed our minds or we've realised that, you know, he wants United and not us, so we've stepped away. Because there's no way that we're stepping away if Onana wants us for 55 million euros. No chance.
I guess it could just be waffle that they only want 55 million for Onana, but who knows? Who knows? On that note, goalkeeper note, we will get to Mason Mount and the Caicedo stuff in a second. Don't worry, guys. Just want to finish off this goalkeeper chat for a second. Apparently, we appreciate Anatoly Trubin. They are considering a goalkeeper who can create competition for Kepa. Again, not gonna lie, never heard of him. No idea if he's good. No idea if he's not. I don't know.
Never heard of him.
But all I will say is what I said earlier. I don't think we should be getting a young goalkeeper to create competition. I think we should get an experience.
What does that mean for Slonina then? This guy must be early 20s. Like, we've already got a young goalkeeper.
Exactly. I mean, unless the plan is for Slonina to go for 2 or 3 years to Strasbourg, because he's obviously, 19? And as a goalkeeper, you shouldn't be a starter for a club like Chelsea until you're at least 24 anyway. So he still has some years to go, I suppose. But still, I just have no idea on Trubin, so I can't really...
Never seen him play. Got absolutely no idea how good he is.
No, not a clue.
Exactly that. But... a few big pieces by Matt Law here. Big pieces by that. Just here quickly.
Hey, Matt Law's been busy.
Exactly. This is what Fabrizio said. Inter won 55 million euros. If that's the case, I honestly don't know why. I mean, obviously, we don't have Champions League football. Inter and Man United do. I get that. But, you know, I just wanted to bring it up quickly. But, where is the Matt Law thing now? I know. The CFC Daily. So, Mount will pocket at least £78 million in wages if he stays at Old Trafford for the full term of his deal, as he will be paid £250,000 a week, plus bonuses that could earn him up to £300,000 a week. Make of that what you will. Does that mean it's now all about money or not? Who the flip knows? But arguably the bigger news, because we've spoken about Mount for long enough already, in the same article about Mount joining Manchester United, Matt Law said Chelsea will now step up their efforts to sign midfielder Moises Caicedo from Brighton. Brighton value him at £100 million, but Chelsea hope to set up a deal worth around £80 million. So I guess all good news. Charlie, also in the money bit for Mason, I guess that's another example of different outlets, different sources reporting different numbers. But 250k to 300k he wouldn't have got that here, would he?
No, but I think he probably could have got something close to 250 with bonuses, maybe incentivized potentially. But ultimately, you know, like he's been chronically underpaid at Chelsea for a long time. He was on that 75, 80k a week contract. He absolutely deserved the pay rise. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say he just left for money, because that's not true, and that'd be wrong. There's more reasons than just money. Whether we'll ever get those reasons, who knows? But yeah, fair play to him, you know. You've got to maximise your earning potential. United are obviously prepared to pay him that money. A player of his quality should be on in and around that kind of money, I would say. So, yeah, you know, fair play to him.
I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to say that they should be on that kind of money. I think they should all be on about half the money they get, if not less. But, you know, that's a whole different debate. But yeah, Joe, many thoughts before you need to head off in terms of 250 to 300k. That's a lot of money. But
yeah,
I guess more reliable news that we're chasing the Caicedo deal.
Yeah, it is a lot of money, and it does, you know, obviously it is now, you know, that you can make the difference. I think if it would have been 200k versus 200k, I don't, but obviously if he's getting more United, you can maybe see what's happened there. But do you guys actually think that United threatening, well, kind of doing that interesting Caicedo? Do you think that actually played a part in Chelsea making a deal, or do you think that was just it was going to happen anyway?
It was all bluff. That was like
that's what I mean. Do you reckon that they've influenced Chelsea?
Because we literally had personal terms agreed with Caicedo, and we have more money to spend right now than Man United do. So what are they going to do about it? I mean,
I just don't know if they try to use it as a tactic. And at the end of the day, I think Chelsea got.
Yeah, they absolutely used it as a tactic for sure.
Yeah, but I still don't think it had much of an impact. I don't think that's the reason.
No, I think Chelsea walked away from the deal, and we've already covered it. With the deal, I think they've done a decent deal there. But Mason Mount, I wonder how he's going to get, accepted now at Chelsea. When he comes back to Stamford Bridge, what the reception's going to be like for him. It's going to be.
Well, I think a lot will depend on what sort of communication comes out from him as to what's happened. There's always going to be people that don't like him and will boo him. Like, I'm someone that will never boo players, because it's just not my style. Look, I think he won't get a good reception, but I think from certain sections of the fan base, it won't be a good reception. But again, it looks to depend on, as I said, what communication we get from him as to how it plays out, really.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I remember when I was speaking to Daniel, son of Chelsea, and obviously he goes to quite a lot of the matches, and he did say to me that he was probably one of the most loved players in the stadiums. Like, you don't see this mixed thing you get online. He was one of the most loved players there. He was always getting the biggest cheers and all that sort of stuff. So maybe at the ground they must still accept the fact that he's gone. But for me, you can't build up your career based on being Chelsea through and through and ending up at Manchester United. No matter what the situation is, surely there could have been something else that that could have been done there. I think going to United, going to Arsenal's, Liverpool's. If you're Chelsea through and through, you just don't do it, do you? In my opinion. But I understand football now.
At the same time, it's also obviously the world has changed, right? Compared to 10, 15 years ago. If you wanted to leave Chelsea and, go elsewhere, then you had the option of God knows how many other big clubs. Now, no one has the money outside of England and the really big ones. And he's, let's be honest, not good enough for Real Madrid.
No.
So,
I understand that. Puts
an issue on it as well. But unfortunately, good old Trevor Chalobah, it doesn't seem to be particularly happy about Mason Mount going to Manchester United. Assuming that's about Mount. Otherwise, what on earth is
I'd be on it.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah. I guess that one. Just another quick thing. I know you need to head off in a second, Joe, so just let me know when you do. That I wanted to touch on, just like I say, for a minute, just to bring it up, because what I initially wanted to speak about here today was also partly, are we moving smart or are we moving stupid? And there's actually one missing from this as well. But Chelsea's project buys under Todd Bowley, clear leg ownership. Signed Gabriel Sanina for 12 million, Santos for 11 million, Casadei for 13 million, Fofana for 10 million, Chukwuemeka for potentially 20 million. Kendry Paez, who's only 15 years old, 17 million pounds. Angelo Gabriel, now 13 million pounds, 50 million euros. No idea who Zach Sturgis, I'll be honest. And Jimmy J. Morgan also for 3 million pounds. In the end, we've already spent nearly 100 million pounds on players that are around the age of 18.
And that Dujon Richards.
Is that the Jamaican player who scored last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Omari Hutchinson and Diego Moreira we got on free transfers as well. And that's what I quickly wanted to ask you, and I'll start with you, Joe, so you can head off after that. Do you think smart, what we're doing?
I think it's hard to judge that now, but it's still a huge sum of money in it. 94 million quid. I think, it's going to be down the line. We're going to know if this was smart investments and that. I think they're either going to look like geniuses or they're going to have egg on their face, the consortium, because they've got a clear idea of what they want to do. They've got a clear plan, what they're trying to do. But, that's a lot of money. I didn't realize it added up to that, in 94. And then you're going to be trying to, fight Brighton for Caicedo and try knocking stuff off that. Could you have dropped a few of them? And, it could be very, very smart, but it could also be very, very stupid. It's still really early to judge that. But, I'm a little bit taken back by the 94 million quid on it, because there is positions that need to be invested in.
Probably add even more to it, right? over the next few months, years, whatever else. Joe, I will talk with Charlie about this more for a few more minutes more, but Joe, appreciate it very much. I know you need to head off.
Thank you for having me, mate.
Please do check out Joe's channel. Link is down in the description. Make sure you drop him a subscription over there. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have you back on the stream in the near future as well, mate. But yeah, have a good rest of your day and we'll chat to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, mate. I really do appreciate it. See you both again soon. See you later.
See you, mate.
Ta-ra.
Yeah, Charlie, I mean, what's your perspective on this? And like, how do you view it? Because obviously what people say is, yeah, not all of them are ever aimed to be in the first team. Some of them we buy to sell for profit. Some of them we buy to send to our feeder clubs. But I still like, other than maybe Santos, maybe Chukwuemeka, maybe Paez, but he's 15. Surely
Casadei's got good potential.
Sure, but not when we signed him. Because what I was gonna get at is, why did we sign these players that seem to be aimed for the multi-club model before we had any of the multi-clubs? Now we obviously have one, but it still seemed like the timing was still a bit strange. Now, it could work out great, and some of these players we could sell for triple, quadruple, 5 times the value, and some of them could make it in our first team. But at the same time, I just hope they get it right in terms of understanding that experience is also a thing in football that makes a difference.
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of this aims to that sort of Project 2030 thing as well, in mind, along with the academy. Now, as you touched on, mate, you know, this is going to be twofold. This idea is to potentially pick up some very good players on the cheap for the first team, but it's also to flip a profit as well on certain players if they don't work out. It's twofold. Not every single one of these players is going to work out. It's a lot of money to spend. I'm not sure. It's something we're not used to. It's not something we've really ever done before. Is sign talented youngsters. We've never done that. So it's a new direction for the club. It's a new route.
I mean, we did on a few occasions, like your Christensens, your Courtois.
No, but not. But Christensen was through the academy, Andreas.
Yeah.
But like this, like never have we gone on a spending spree for young players like this.
No. Like I say, obviously you had your Lucas Piazon and your, you know, there was a few.
Gael Kakuta as well.
Yeah, exactly. But never to this extent, this many in such a short amount of time.
I mean, there's only going to be one way to find out, and we're not going to have any answers really for a number of years still. You know, we might get answers quicker from the likes of Chukwuemeka. You might get an answer quicker from maybe an Andre Santos or a Casadei, but the others is complete stab in the dark. You've got no idea. Obviously, the intention is they all work out, but that's not how football works. So, I mean,
and that's the part that worries me a little bit as well, because football, yes, of course, talent plays a big part, but talent isn't everything in football. It's also about your application and hard work, and getting players this young, especially your Kendrick Paez. And I'm not going to put any, you know, words into his mouth or whatever, or assume how he's going to act. But if you give a guy like that, basically sign him at 15, he's now turned 16 by now already, but still, he's already made it in a way from where he's grown up in Ecuador.
Of course, yes.
I don't know what levels he grew up in. Like, was he poor? Was he somewhat well off in Ecuadorian terms? I don't know. But you know, it's still Ecuadorian terms. So still that money that you get from playing for Chelsea is still going to be big money.
Oh, mate, he's made it for life already, basically.
Exactly. So is that going to be like just because you're talented at 15 doesn't mean you're going to be great at 25, you know?
No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. And, you know, players develop at different rates. You know, development's not linear, despite what a lot of people make out. It isn't linear. Drogba turned pro at 24. Michael Owen had his best years of his career between 17 and 25. You know, after his mid-20s, he was on a downward spiral. So players develop at a different rate. Slonina could be someone that is obviously already very good now, but we might not see the benefits of how good he is until 23, 24, 25. These are long-term investments. Andre Santos, Casadei, Chukwuemeka and that, you'd think those guys are there's a bit more certainty around them in terms of them being a success. But ultimately, there's no guarantees that any of these players are going to be a success. There's got to be application on their behalf. The club have got to provide an environment that's going to allow them to flourish. And that's not always been the case with Chelsea and players. So there's a lot of things that need to go right for this to work. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to work because we don't have any idea. It's something different. No one's got any idea what's really going to happen with this because we've never done it before. We've always gone for signing proven players, and some of these will work and it'll be great, and some of them won't work. But I don't know. It's hard to have a real opinion on it because we're not going to get any answers for quite a while. So, but I mean, you could look at it as I said, if we sign, I don't know, say we sign Datch for fine of 10 mil, a couple of years' time, we decide it's not really good enough, you get at least 15 for him. So, have we really lost there? Not really.
Exactly. So, the only thing that I do, and I know Pice also has that opinion, like CFC Zayden here, who says a lot of these youngsters will be there for profit in the future, not just for our first team, which is obviously true. But we just signed Angelo Gabriel for 15 million euros. And currently, AC Milan are not willing to pay more than 15 million euros for Pulisic. There is no guarantee we are going to sell them for profit. Like, people just think, okay, when we sell them, they're going to be at least 20, 30 million. How? Like, we're just selling Pulisic for 15 million now, or that's all AC Milan want to spend. We signed him for 60, like right when he was 21, 22, whenever he was 21, I think. And now he's going for 15 million. There's no guarantee that these players are going to drastically improve in value. Maybe a little bit, but
no, there's not. But there's no guarantees to any of it, and that's the thing. That's the problem. That's the thing with football is like. There are no guarantees other than Haaland and Kane scoring a fuckload of goals next season and City probably winning the league. There's not really any guarantees, particularly when it comes to player transfers as well. And look, this on paper looks great. You think in 5, 6, 7 years' time, we're going to have a banging team. But ultimately, football is unique in a sense where you've got to plan long-term but succeed short-term, which are two contradictory things. So, this is great for the long-term, but what are we doing to address the short-term issues at the moment?
Yeah.
So,
well, apparently signing Caicedo, because after Matt Law spoke about it, Fabrizio also thought, let me add another tweet, basically saying the same thing. Chelsea will attack Moises Caicedo deal now, as revealed yesterday, when United never entered the race despite reports, and it's now time for Chelsea-Brighton direct negotiation. Caicedo already said yes, personal terms are not an issue, up to the clubs. And because we made him so clearly our number one target, I'm very confident that we will get him. That's one thing that this ownership is. Sorry?
I don't think anyone else is coming in for him now. The only team we've got to worry about is if Man City decide, we fancy it.
Yeah, exactly. Who are apparently rivaling us for Gabri Veiga, which I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but we'll have to see about that one. But yeah, like you say, first of all, there's not going to be that many other players in for him, but also this ownership have proved and shown that when we want the player, we tend to get the player.
Yeah.
So make of that. Obviously, now we're not in Europe compared to when we were in January and last summer negotiating. So I guess that puts us at a slightly more difficult position. But in general,
what's mad though, right? People are like always banging on, we need to get more experience. We need to get more experience. Yeah, everyone's fully on board with Caicedo, who is a top player, but he's 21. He's played less than 50 games for Brighton. But everyone bangs the experience drum. But then this is fine. It's a bit hypocritical. It's a bit contradictory in my opinion.
But see, I guess that kind of, even though you didn't aim it at me, that also includes me because I say exactly that same thing. I want Caicedo, even though I still think we need experienced players. But that's my issue, right? My issue is that we shouldn't have let go all the experienced players, but you should still sign the top young players, like a Caicedo, who is young but still proved enough in our league that we can kind of, bank on this and say, you go for it. But if you still had a Kovacic around, a Jorginho around, and Kante around, then you'd have a bit something around that. And I'm not saying those are the players that I want to have around all the time, but, it's going to be Enzo and Caicedo that start most games anyway.
Yeah.
But if their backups are then 18, then what, that's what I'm a little bit concerned about. The backups are going to be extremely young.
But what I would also say on that is that at some point, we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is and trust what we're doing. Because you bought these young midfielders in Casadei, Santos, Chukwuemeka, etc. At some point, we're going to have to back ourselves in what we're doing and play these guys. There's no point going and signing a Romeo Lavia who's 6 months older than Santos. Like, at some point, we have to back ourselves in what we are doing and trust what we are doing and give these guys a chance. And, I'm not saying that we shouldn't sign another midfielder. We should if we can, but we have to, at some point, we can't just keep going out and buying players. You've got to trust and develop what you've already got. You can't just go for a constant cycle of buy. You have to trust what we're doing. And what we're doing is we're going down this route of signing talented youngsters. Well, then we need to back ourselves and play these guys in the first team then, because otherwise the whole thing is almost pointless. So it's It's a strange one for me, you know.
A lot of it is up in the air, and we will only time will tell whether
who would you sign as another player? So, let's just tempt fate and say we get Caicedo. Hopefully, I've not jinxed it, right?
Yeah.
Who do you bring in as another one? Because Lavia's gone quiet, right? I'm not saying that can't be reignited, but that's gone very quiet from a Chelsea perspective. Manu Kone's gone very quiet. Doesn't really seem to be anything there. Obviously, we missed out on Agate. I mean, what other options of the quality that we need is really there?
I don't know, especially as in the pivot, right? Because we've obviously been linked to Gabri Veiga, and if super necessary,
though, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So if super necessary, could probably play the more offensive role in the double six, but not in an ideal world. So that's exactly my issue. Like, and I would sit there again. Should we maybe consider someone not old, but someone a little bit more experienced?
What are your thoughts on? We had yesterday. I think it was from Relevo, whatever it's called. There were potential links with Frank Kessie.
I kind of liked him at AC Milan, you know, and I've not followed it in too much detail, but it doesn't really look like he ever kicked on at all at Barca. So, and that was Barca being dreadful, you know, not having a dreadful team, being dreadful everywhere, and he still barely made it in the team from what I saw. So, yeah, I mean, not the worst in the world, but I don't know. Should we look at someone like Sofian Amrabat? I don't know. Like, he's certainly older, but not experienced at this level either. So yes, older, but not experienced at our level. So,
but experience is twofold, isn't it? We've discussed this a lot before. It's like experience is not just age doesn't equal experience, because you know if you're just banging on about experience, just sign fucking James Milner on a free transfer. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
Well, it needs to be experienced mixed with physically still being capable.
Yeah, well, exactly. But experience, as you say, like it's not just the amount of games you've played. Experience for me is like what you really want is experience in the big moments, the experience in the big matches, the experience in the pressure situations. That's what we need. And you know, we have to accept that with these youngsters that we're signing, we're gonna have players that are gonna make mistakes, that are gonna, you know, learn the hard way, you know. Can they deal with the pressure? Well, we're only going to find out when we get into those pressure situations. So
what about Granit Xhaka?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, he would be a bit more experienced.
There's not many about though, is there, that we've been linked with? I'm sure, of course, there's loads of midfield players, but you look at the names that we were linked with: Caicedo, Lavia, Kone, Khéphren Thuram. You know, that it's really Kone and Khéphren Thuram or Lavia, you would think, as a second signing, but how likely are we to get any of those three?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a case of let's get Caicedo now, then we're going to do preseason. We're going to judge your Andre Santos, your Casadei, your this and that, and then we'll go from there. Even though obviously Fabrizio said yesterday that we're potentially looking at the second midfielder, which to me isn't potentially, we're definitely signing another midfielder. But I think that we're going to judge on how everyone's doing and what kind of the vibe is after preseason, in preseason, who they're going to target. And I think that's not fully decided yet. What kind of player in terms of age group, experience-wise, I think that might still be decided eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what we decide to do. Because again, it's a big gamble to take if we decide to back ourselves if Gallagher stays and we have Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher plus the three youngsters.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely. It will worry me as well if that's the case going into the season. But I think, mate, we're about time to wrap up, I reckon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, I haven't even told you today, please do subscribe and hit that like button for me. That'd be massively appreciated. Please do, of course, subscribe to Charlie's channel. As you can see on screen, Blue Brother CFC. I can't even speak anymore. Link is as always down in the description. Just hit the subscribe to him. That'd be massively appreciated. Obviously, check him out on Twitter as well. Because we always bring up, even when Pice isn't here, we bring up his tweets. Check out Pice's Twitter as well. Of course, link is as always down in the description. Check out Joe, like we touched on. Shout out to him for coming on. Appreciate it very, very much. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards. Let's hope for some good Caicedo news over the next few days, and we'll see you next time.